thank you for being part of this this morning on ITV Tuesday edition. I did say we'll be looking at the rule of law and national interest. And this is actually coming on the heels of the president's speech at the opening ceremony of the NBA annual conference for this year's edition, and looking at what he said in the opening ceremony on the speech. Issues about the aspect where he made it clear that the nation's security, the national interest, the rule of law is subjected to that. And looking at that as it is, custodians of the law have been on this issue trying to dissect, analyze what the president really meant, why some really have been furious over this. But discussing this with me, looking at the way it really was stated and what it means in terms of the legal implications of that. I have legal practitioners with me, starting from my immediate left. I have a notary public of Nigeria, a constitutional lawyer, a friend of the media, Adams Aliyu. Many thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. You have good day.
I believe you had Israel time, because I understand you took a trip. Good to know you.
Thank God.
All right. And next, I also have another custodian of the law. He's known as but Williams Chima. Many thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, my brother.
And I have a very young gentleman and his public affairs analyst, Francis Owaifo. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
I choose to start with you, Francis Owaifo. Looking at what we have here, the statement credited to the president in the conference and the speech he made, which suggested that he made it clear that the rule of law must be subjected to the nation's security and national interest. Is there anything wrong in that statement?
Well, I want to say, because when you look at, since that statement was said yesterday, there has been a lot of reactions from senior lawyers and advocates and a lot of others. To me, I believe that that statement carries a very big security implication and risk coming from number one man of the nation, of Mr. President, because of, you will find out that even the president coming to power, I remember 2015 when the election and so many other things, INEC and so on and so forth, was going about the election process, it was same rule of law that ushered in this administration to power. And that same rule of law, to me, I believe that national interest is embedded in the rule of law, because you have what we call the fundamental human rights of every citizen. So even if nobody is against the president fighting insurgency and fighting corruption in Nigeria, but it should be fought in the ambit of the law, because the law takes precedence. The rule of law is sacrosanct, because when you say democracy, Nigeria is a democratic nation. When you practice democracy, everything about democracy it has a legal backing. You are looking at the three arms of government. You have the executive, you have the legislature, you have the judiciary, and you find out that each are independent entity of the government, and they are all under the law. They are all set up by the rule of law. And you find out that where the law supersedes, because when you say the national interest, you have to look at what is national interest. National interest, for me, can be something whereby maybe there is an emergency and you want to use this discretion as a president to alter certain things, or to do, even when you are going to have a state of emergency in a particular state of the federation, you still have to go through the National Assembly for ratification. When the National Assembly feels that it's not necessary, you will see that there will be a no to the president. So it shows that there is no norm or there is no act or whatever that is above the rule of law in Nigeria, because we are a nation that the nation states and the people therein are what the laws are made for, and the laws is supreme. So no matter, Nigeria is not a tumor. We are not in war. We are not in a situation whereby you are looking for, whereby the president must get his own discretion to do certain things. Nigeria is very peaceful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Understanding that aspect, well, you are a constitutional lawyer, Adams Aliyu. Let's dissect this properly. The aspect where the president made it, that is it not for national interest? Is it not for the nation's security that the rule of law was propounded? Does it not support national interest?
Well, the forum was a very unique forum. Where you had the number one legal officer of the state, the Attorney General, Mr. Justice, yes. Eminent jurists were there too. Then, as a purely constitutional matter, Chapter 1, Section 1 of the Constitution provides that the Constitution is supreme.
Yes.
It shall be binding on every persons and authorities throughout the Federation of Nigeria. Chapter 1, Section 1, Subsection 3 further provides that if there is anything that is not in tandem with the Constitution, to the extent of the incongruency, that thing will fail because the Constitution will succeed. National interest, national security, vis-a-vis rule of law, they are like two sides of the same coin. The rule of law that is being megaphoned and branded is encapsulated in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, Sections 33 to 46, where you have, amongst other things, all the authoritative, that is to say, fair hearing. So if rule of law is to be prevailed, you accuse someone, he is deemed innocent until he is proved guilty. Nobody is just taken and put in jail. He is allowed for a trial. The president's speech was constitutionally right on three tripod stands. One, Section 14, Subsection 1, says that Nigeria is a democratic nation, as my presica, like a democratic station, based on democracy and social justice. 14, Subsection 2, Sub B, provides that security and welfare are the primary purposes of government. When you talk of security and welfare now, it superimposes the rule of law, because there are two sides of the same coin, but one bows to the other. If the rule of law bows to the security of the nation, because 14.2 subsection says that security and welfare of the people is the primary aim of government.
Are you trying to say that this that the rule of law does not support security of the nation?
Yes, chapter.
Then why the disparity?
Chapter 4,
okay.
Section 33 to 46 talks of the rule of law. It is the other side of the same coin. And when the security of the welfare comes first, is paramount. If the rule of law is not in tandem with the welfare and security of the people, then the society ought not to exist. The president's speech too is equally derivable from some judicially decided cases which we regard in law stare decisis or res judicata. That is decided cases of the Supreme Court where it was established that the rule of law is not for one person, it is for others. Non-CB, said Alice, it's not for yourself, it's for others. To the greater glory of God and mankind, ad majorem et gloria. So it is for the greater society that is necessary. Not the rule of law. It cannot be personalized or benched. If the rule of law, if the alleged fundamental human rights of chapter 4, section 36, 33 to 40, especially section 36, is accentuating the individual right of somebody, yes, it is subject to the security of the nation.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we will gain a lot from that exposition, but let's get another perception from another custodian of the law, Chima. How do you dissect, analyze this? Don't they go together? Don't they mean the same thing?
Yeah, you see, when you place rights, there are no rights that are at the same pedestal. Some helps to achieve the other, okay, while some enlarges the other. Rule of law helps to maintain national security, okay, and national interest.
Okay.
And you see, I do not really think that Mr. President said anything novel. It is primary and it's elementary that for a society to function, for you to even think of enjoyment of that rule of law provisions, there must be security, there must be tranquility, okay? The nation must be at peace. So, in a situation where there is chaos, there is anarchy,
which we don't have.
Yes. Now, you see, elongation or putting rule of law in surmountable elasticity leads to anarchy. Because the way most of us are interpreting it based on the statements of Mr. President, you know, seems that everybody has the right to do anything you like. So nobody should check the other. Because you have the right, you know, of expression, you have the right of freedom of movement, you have the right of association, so you can gather and kill others.
No. It's curtailed within the provisions of the Constitution.
That is it. Now, as my learned senior had rightly pointed out, national security, national interest, the welfare and well-being of citizens is the primary duty of any government.
Yes, I beg to interrupt you there.
Okay.
You made mention of the fact that it's mostly like in the time of anarchy or war that you can maybe suspend the Constitution.
You
can jettison the rule of law.
Mr. President,
but we are not there.
No.
We are not in chaos.
Now,
we are not in time of war.
You see
why that statement?
You see,
how does it relate?
Yes. Now, if we are looking at intentions which are not legal to an extent, except there is a mens rea and then there is actus reus. You know, there is an intent, there is purpose, and then there is committal. So, from Mr. President's statement, okay, we don't like to hear the truth. Honestly, that's my simple interpretation, analyzing the whole, you know, statement. Okay? Now, something led to that. That statement was not made in vacuum. There were other statements, other things that Mr. President had addressed. And don't forget, Mr. President was addressing lawyers, whom even the chief law officer, the Attorney General, had accused most senior lawyers, some senior lawyers, very, very senior lawyers, of compromising the law, okay, and corrupting the system in the name of, you know, rule of law. Which means you can interpret the rule of law and hide under the rule of law to commit crimes. And when the law comes calling, you hide that I have the right to be protected. But when you were depriving others their own rights, you did not consider they equally have their own rights.
But there is also the provision of the law which says that someone cannot be seen guilty until it has been proven.
But Mr. President has not passed guilty on anybody.
If you are saying this, that some are in the disguise of hiding in the cloak of the rule of law to commit havoc, to commit crime, has the law caught up with them yet?
No.
So will it not be too hasty for you to generalize on that?
No.
Why can't the law, because that's the essence of the rule of law,
now this is
where one has to be proven guilty.
This is the point that we are making. Okay, that rule of law only helps to accentuate the enjoyment of national security. So rule of law definitely is subsumed under national interest. Because without national interest, what are you talking of rule of law? For who? You are talking of rule of law for society to function effectively for the benefit of every member of the society. This is why you are talking of rule of law. And in a situation where, you know, national security will be compromised in enforcing rule of law, okay, I think it will be weighed on the balance, because the scale, the judicial scale, you know, is at a balance, and the holder of the scepter is blind, so she doesn't look at your face, she doesn't care, you know, who you are. So it is when you put the materials the facts, the issues on that weighing balance, wherever the scale tilts, carries the day.
Okay.
Okay. So the point we Nigerians can be discussing is, was Mr. President making that statement to prepare the ground for something to happen, or was he addressing, you know, people he believes will understand what he is saying?
Is it a signal of what's to take place?
Okay.
Yes,
so this is where intention comes
yes,
in.
intention is coming.
Okay, which you cannot begin. Nobody has ever been crucified for intention until an act is carried out, is executed. Okay, so from now, Nigerians will only be discussing this so that if there is anything that is brewing somewhere, okay, maybe it can be stopped. Or the lawyers that Mr. President was addressing, okay, if they feel that Mr. President, you know, pejored against them or, you know, maligned them by that statement, because I take it that it wasn't a general statement to Nigerians, it was addressing a special class of citizens that he believes understands what he is saying.
Okay, I think the pendulum of question will swing back to you.
Yeah.
But Francis Uwaifo, let's take the flesh of what the president said and analyze what has been happening. Like the former NSA, Sambo Dasuki, whose case, there has been 6 subsistent court orders for his release on bail, for which the present administration is having a reserved disposition on that. Weighing this with the rule of law and national interest, do you see the sense of the president's speech in that?
Well, I want to say that judging by what the two learned men, our colleague has said, it shows that the rule of law still takes precedence over national interest. That's the truth, because when you say national interest, it shows that there is something that you are intending to do, like just like you said, intention.
We are not in the time of war. This
Well,
is not a war situation.
We
are not in any chaos.
So it shows that
now, will it be on the cases of what has been transpiring, where a lot of persons have been saying that the rule of law should have its way?
Yes,
the present administration is not obeying court orders.
Exactly.
A case in point is the number one national security advisor, who the court has given 6 court orders, subsisting court orders, 6. The 6th one was in July 2nd.
Yes.
And the present administration is still reserving its disposition.
So to me, I believe that the rule of law, just as I said, must take its course, because when you swear by the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution, no matter how you feel as a person, no matter how you perceive somebody, you must be able to obey. Everybody has his fundamental rights, because until the court has proven you guilty or has proven otherwise that this man should go to jail.
Yes, and it's even stated in the rule of law as the inalienable rights
of every individual.
of the citizen, which cannot be taken away.
Cannot be taken away. So that's why I fought this administration for still holding the NSA captive, the former NSA captive, because he has been granted bail. And why is his right being infringed upon?
Probably a threat to national interest.
To me, there's no threat to national security in that place, because when you say threat to national security, it means that whatever is capable of truncating democracy in Nigeria, whatever is capable of inflaming war, or whatever disorder in the country. Because I don't see a man that is incarceration, one man that has his own rights. And that is why I said the rule of law must be redefined and must be looked at. Because we have rights.
Okay.
And every just like you and I, our rights must not be trampled upon. So whatever intention anybody has, I believe that such a person, whoever, must be cautioned. Because this country does not belong to one person, it belongs to everybody. And it was based on the rule of law that the nation, the states and all the federation unit was set up and was brought together.
Okay, thank you. Adam Sali, you're having this topic in mind, and the aspect of the former NSA. How do you look at this? Because
It is very-
you say that the president means this direction,
It is
and
very,
also is following suit to those who probably could be contesting with him in
it
2019.
is very interesting that this thing is happening at this very moment, especially between the dramatists personally. Who are the dramatists personally in this instance? The president on one hand, Sambo Dasuki on the other hand. If it were the other way around, the president would have been accused of being parochial, of being tribalistic, of being nepotic. That you see now, because he's his brother. We remember, if the old national anthem talks of tribe and tongue, they differ. Here now, the tribe and tongue of Dasuki and Buhari is not different. The same tongue.
But he didn't
They are
serve.
brothers.
He didn't serve in his government. He served
No,
in
they
his
were
government.
both colonels. They are from the same military constituency. Buhari reached general, he reached colonel. So military discipline, regular infantry, warfare, they both underwent them. So from the same primary constituency, from the same tribe, with the same tongue, with the same religion. But he is saying, you know this bill they are talking of. The bill is not compulsory. If it is at the interest and instance that we militate against the security of the nation, court, other circumstances can withhold the bail. So that is what is in issue.
How could that affect the nation's security and national interest?
Yeah, you don't need to be told. 6 orders have been given that he could be on bail and be coming. You don't need to advertise it here. The security agents know that Dasuki was a national security advisor. He was very powerful. He is very rich. The Dasukis are not ordinary people from northwestern Nigeria, from Sokoto, from the Caliphate. A very powerful person.
So it could be a risk to the country's
If he
security.
lives, if he is allowed the whole perimeter of the world, you cannot foretell. That is what the president knows. Because when people are now saying the president does not like Dasuki, it's like people, a Catholic who says he's holier than the Pope, or crying more than they believe. They know themselves. He knows what Dasuki could do.
But as a legal practitioner,
Yeah.
will you see that as a fair game? Will you see that as something that
because
is
security and
lawful?
welfare
is
of the
involved?
Constitution, Section 14, Sub 2, says that security and welfare of the populace of Nigeria are the paramount system of government. When Buhari was sworn in May 29, he took oath of office to abide by the Constitution, to place the Constitution first, not to allow any other thing to damify or blindfold his service to the nation. So as I said, there are many other things that are subterranean,
Okay.
which need not to be advertised here.
I think we have this whole issue is coming like a two-edged sword.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin.
Yes, and he's going to come back to you. The question I'll be asking you,
Okay.
definitely from the judiciary aspect.
Yeah.
We will see how to really gravitate on that. But Chima, how do you see this, looking at the Dasuki's issue?
You see, like you rightly pointed out, the Dasuki's case is a two-edged sword, which Nigerians have to be very careful in how to handle it, or else it can pierce both sides, it can pierce anybody. Now, if you recall, when I made the statement, I said, when you deny others of their rights, you do not consider they equally have the right to enjoy the fruit of the rule of law. Okay? But when it affects you, you become an apostle of rule of law. Self-servicing. And no nation survives on self-servicing. Okay? Now, I do not agree with the present administration, that Dasuki, who has been granted bail, should not be released on bail.
You differ.
Yes. But he can be released and be rearrested. The law allows that.
On what condition? On what grounds? Because
on
if you grant someone bail, except
Bail-
a fresh charge,
Bail is not automatic. Okay? There is no bail that goes without a condition. I have been granted bail before, and there were conditions, and I met the conditions of that bail,
And so,
to enjoy it.
so there wouldn't be need for a rearrest.
Now that you've been granted bail does not grant you immunity. Okay?
Are you talking about, for instance, someone jumps bail
Now
and be rearrested?
it is not.
Or
It
on,
is not.
on fresh charges?
Well, if you look our administration of justice law, there are ample provisions, and that is why I said I disagree with the present administration in continuous holding of, Sambo Dasuki. First, respect that
Court order.
judgment, that rule, because you are the custodian of, rule and law in the country.
Yeah.
And the judiciary is a separate entity from the executive. So if you do not respect judicial pronouncements, you should not, be proud to benefit from it too. Okay? It becomes, how do I describe it? Because everybody is entitled to enjoy the fruit of legitimate judgment or ruling or pronouncement of a competent court of law, in order that we do not ridicule our judicial system. Okay? Obey it. If Sambo Dasuki has been granted bail, it is one. Has he fulfilled the bail conditions? Did the court order that Sambo Dasuki should just dust his clothes and walk home without doing anything to guarantee that, he will respect whatever comes out of, the fuller trial?
And even reports have it that even the bailiff released the document of his bail to the executive.
I do not quarrel with that. What I'm saying is this. I have said it. You don't need to tell me whether the bailiff released the documents of his bail or not. Because how can a bailiff, who did he release it to? Who invited him to bring it? You see, in this country, we do media judgments, media trials, and media, sentences.
Prosecution.
And releasing. Okay? Which ought not to be. It ought not to be. We should follow the law. What does the administration of criminal justice say? That before you detain a person, you get a court order to detain that person. Did the present administration get that court order to detain Sambo Dasuki? If they did that, correct. Now the next step, Sambo Dasuki and his team, in enforcement of his fundamental rights, has approached the court. Look, I am entitled to be deemed innocent until I am established to be guilty. Okay? And for me to prove my innocence, I need to be out of the four walls of, confinement. Okay? And the court looks at what he says and looks at the opposition that comes from those that are detaining him and says, well, we believe that, you should be out of it. Then you come out. Because first and foremost, let's look at what are the charges against him. If it is treason, you know that in treason, grant of bail is not automatic.
But are you not also looking at
Now,
this?
Now, I am saying
Yes.
two wrongs does not make a right.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
So, if the federal government of Nigeria will enforce the judgment of the court, assuming Sambo Dasuki is convicted, to send him to jail on the orders of the court, okay, and can follow the provisions of the administration of criminal justice law to get the order to detain him, the federal government should equally follow that same rule to grant him bail or to release him when the same court has granted him bail.
Okay, but are you not considering the aspect where Ebon Adams Aliyu, the constitutional lawyer, also said it, that it could be a big risk to the nation's security and national interest.
Yes.
If he's granted bail.
Yes.
Could that not be the reason why the administration is trying to be careful about that?
Yes. Now the point here is this. The view of the law is that it is better for 99 guilty persons to go free than for one innocent person to be punished. Okay?
Considering
Now,
national
based on
what we are looking at.
When we are considering national security.
Because you said it earlier that on that ground, the rule of law can be subjected to national security.
I agree with you. I have not changed my position.
Okay.
Okay? What I'm saying is this. For everybody to understand the angle you're coming from, that is why the provision for rearrest is there. And people in this country have been rearrested after being granted bail. As you're fulfilling the bail condition, if anything flags off that, you can truncate. Because
just bail.
Whether jumping bail,
okay.
Whether because people can be in detention and still commit havoc through their adherence.
Yes.
So, if the security apparatus of the nation sees that, look, if this man, leaves this custody with what he's doing while he is inside custody, he can overrun. Mind you, that national security is not only when Nigerians are dying. National security includes overrunning the government of the day.
But if such statements are made, or judgment or perception are made, would that not be presumptive?
Now, such statements will not be made to me and you.
Okay.
Okay? It can never be made to me and you. So those that are doing it, that is why I said, but in the eyes of the law, is it right to presume? In the eyes of the law, it is not me and you, it is not the media that put the issues of national security and national interest to be the primary duty of governments. Okay. It is not me and you, it is not the media that put emergency rules. Okay? There can be imposition of curfew, state of emergency can be declared once, the ingredients that warrant that are present and the processes for it followed. And when there is a state of emergency, who talks about rule of law? Because you have to secure the nation first for you to talk about rule of law. So the point I am making here is this, that two wrongs does not make a right. If I am discussing here as a layman, okay, I will give you 101 reasons why Sambo Dasuki should remain there. Infinity.
Okay, but in one
sense, as a lawyer, I will argue, and as a human rights lawyer for that, I will argue that, look, if you want to enjoy the benefit of the judicial arm of government, you must respect it. If you don't respect it, you shouldn't expect to enjoy the benefit from it.
Okay, before I get to the next guest,
yes.
in just one sentence,
yeah.
Do you see the possible bail of the former NSA, Sambo Dasuki, as a threat to the nation's security?
No. If you ask my opinion here at this platform, you are being wrong on such a weighty issue. I am not a security person. I am a lawyer. If Sambo Dasuki is my client, I will fight for his release. Okay? If, as a lawyer, if federal government asks me to prosecute Sambo Dasuki, I will prosecute him and I will advise the government on the right path to take to balance the scale of justice.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Thank you, I'll come back to you. Francis Wifo, there has been this issue, the president has been on this, that the judiciary seem not to be at the same page with him in the fight against corruption, looking at the adjudication of cases at the judicial angle. Do you see that as entirely false?
Well, it might not entirely be false, because when you look at the judiciary. Judiciary works on the rule of law. When pronouncements are made or when some certain things are said, they expect the executive, because we found out that in this government, most judicial pronouncements have been flouted. A lot, not just on the NSA, a lot, some others. And we found out that when an arm of government, when certain things affect them, because when we look at the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, they're supposed to be different arms, and no one is supposed to supersede each other. They're supposed to work in tandem and become and act as a government, and whereby one is underrated above the other. You find out that there is bound to be this friction, whereby the other one will feel that one is not respecting his right and his authority. So that is exactly what I'm saying playing out in this administration. So I believe that when court orders and court pronouncements are obeyed, are taken to the letter, whatever, because we can't do anything outside the Constitution, and the Constitution has given the judiciary the right to make pronouncements and to advocate on laws governing the nation.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, or made it clear that even after the president made a speech, that for the promotion of democracy in Nigeria, the rule of law is sacrosanct.
It is.
How do you marry that?
Certainly.
Yes. Looking at it from the aspect of national interest, being the rule of law being subjected to national interest. Looking at that statement made by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, how do you create a balance with what the president said?
You don't find out that the president and the Chief Justice of the Federation, they're like not being on the same page. Because I expect the president to always lead the Chief Justice for guidance and on interpretation of the laws. So, but now what we are seeing is that the president is like wanting to take certain decisions outside what the Chief Justice perceive or wants to happen in the nation.
Okay, but will it be fair to also say that there are because there's a dictum that says that delayed justice is denial of justice.
Yes.
Now, in the series of adjournment of cases we always have in the judiciary, in the Nigerian courts, do you see that as a possible way of delaying justice?
You can't say delay because some cases are peculiar. There are cases that I've interacted with senior lawyers. They said that those things we perceive as delayed justice are merely delayed justice, because we find out that there are some evidences and things that just need to be set right before such cases can be dispensed with. Because when you just like Brother said here, there are some cases you find that even if a bail is granted, you find out that such a person has tendencies of constituting nuisance in the public or constituting security threats. You have to tread softly and tread with caution. So that's how I see it. That's why we said most times you find out that some cases stay longer, or the process is so long, because everything you have to balance the equation, because so that you can be right in the eyes of the law. Because the law sometimes has its own intricacies.
Thank you, Francis Uwaifo. Well, in case you're just watching us this morning on ITV, and we are on the rule of law and national interest, coming on the heels of what the president made in his speech during the 2018 NBA annual conference, which had a couple of days back. Don't forget that you can follow us on our Twitter handle at ITV Radio NG, and you can like our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/ITV Radio NG. Just interact with us using our various social media platforms, and it could help to shape some thoughts on what we are discussing right now. But back to you, Adam Saliu. There's this aspect where the president has been on with the judiciary not being on the same page. It has been perceived that the judiciary sometimes, or most cases, delay justice and tends to truncate the efforts of the president in the anti-corruption war. And Walter Morgan, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, also made mention of the fact that in the perceived delayed cases, that it's not solely the responsibility or the cause, the judiciary is not the cause of such, that it is investigations, how investigations are being taken, how they are being prosecuted by the anti-graft agencies, the law enforcement agencies and all that. How do you marry this in terms of the judiciary helping in the fight of the anti-corruption war?
Well, the judicial system is predicated on civil and criminal procedure. It is not a town hall village trial, which is ad hoc, spontaneous and simultaneous judgments. There are processes. You must submit your claim. And on the evidence you give, cross-examination, re-examination.
Which takes time.
Yeah, it would obviously take time. It's different what happens in the village square where somebody is called, you state his case, the presiding officer gives judgment there and then. There's no way, because if you allege, you must prove. Once there's no preponderance of evidence, the accused will go free. And the judge was not present. Before he will deliver judgment, he will quote the sentence with the evidence available before me. If you now talk of corruption, this is why I was taking bribe, you really come to court. How much was he giving? In which denomination? Who is the witness? The taker of the bribe, did you take? When you cannot prove your case, no witness, the person will go free. Many of these assertions, they look ludicrous to me when people are sentimental. We have been told in a celebrated case in 1978 in the Supreme Court, where Justice Andrews Otutu Obaseki, JSC as it then was, passed the judgments in the case of Ezelugo Ahanyere in 1978. Okay. That sentiments have no place in law. If it had, our job would have become less difficult and more beneficial to the society. But many people commenting on issues, legal issues, constitutional issues, they are very sentimentally flabby, and they tend to argue from a standardized point with the facts on ground not being taken into consideration. Now, the paramount aim of government is welfare and security, 14 sub 2, and that one overrides every other thing. If there are two sides to a coin, one, even twins, they are born the same day, one is still senior. So, head or tail, the head is still superior. National interest, national security is still superior, overrides the rule of law which must bow, because we cannot risk the security and welfare of the general populace to the whims and caprices of an individual who will hibernate under the rule of law to commit crime or plan as an accessory before or after the fact to commit crime. The court knows that, and the president has sworn to abide by the Constitution, protect the integrity of the nation. There are many of his modus vivendi which he cannot advertise to the raison d'etre of Dasuki's team big case. As I said, if we want to be parochial and narrow-minded, the president, Dasuki, they are from same geographical region, same religion, military career, same tribe and tongue. So we should not cry more than the bereaved. Security and welfare, national interest supersedes the rule of law, which is encapsulated in Chapter 4, Section 36. Thank you.
Barrister Chima, you mentioned the fact that there could be possible ways in which, like what the president even made clear in the speech, the need for lawyers to really support in the fight against corruption. And there could be possible ways where lawyers or even judges could want to truncate that effort. What do you think about that?
Yeah, as a lawyer, I would be telling myself the biggest lie if I say that, you know, there is no iota of truth in what Mr. President said. Okay?
So some lawyers could be getting this.
Sure, and some judges.
Judges.
And we know this very clearly.
So the perceived intimidation of judges in time past, you are not really having a problem with that?
Well, I am having a problem with that.
Okay.
You cannot have said it many times. Two wrongs does not make a right. Okay? That you want to catch a criminal and then you become criminal yourself, criminal-minded or criminal in your own activities.
You are equally wrong.
You are equally wrong because they are set and laid down procedures of doing things. Okay? So, otherwise, Mr. President will not be crying about lawyers and judges that are not helping or that are truncating, making it very difficult for the fight against corruption, you know, to be seen working. Okay? And this brings me to what I always talk about.
Okay, but
there is nothing an individual can do and sustain except we build institutions.
strong institutions.
Strong institutions.
That will anchor the rule of law on democracy.
Yeah, because we are seeing what is happening in the United States of America presently, where a jury has convicted a very powerful person connected with Mr. President. Okay? That couldn't have happened if there were no strong institutions. If you had left it to the whims and caprices of individuals, it could be compromised.
Okay, but don't you see those strong institutions being laid by the present administration looking at the disposition of the president?
Now, you see, the disposition of Mr. President, I must be honest, I love Mr. President, okay, there are no questions about it, but his personal dispositions will never strengthen, you know, institutions, except institutions are built, effectively monitored and managed to survive and stand on their own.
I think that's what our Norway was also talking about when we mentioned the fact that the judiciary should be made independent. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I have been an advocate of this. I've made this submission at constitutional, you know, review processes, okay, that, you know, everything concerning the judiciary should be on the first line charge, okay? Where do, you know, the executive draw their own? They make their own budgetary allocations, and that is the only way, you know, he who, you know, pays the piper, dictates the tune. If, as a judge, I know that if I don't give a judgment that, you know, you like, I can be rest assured that my salary will be withheld for one flimsy excuse or the other, you know, for some months.
But that has been the way. That has been the way we've been on. Like that, like what you said. He who dictates the
he who pays the
piper dictates the tune.
Yes,
that has been the status quo.
Yes,
and so if we follow the status quo, we won't raise strong institutions.
That is exactly
so
the point.
How do we bet strong institutions?
Now we will build strong institutions starting from the laws we make. Okay, starting from the laws we make. The laws will create independence for every strong institution that has things to do for the smooth, good order of the governance of this nation.
Okay.
Okay? So that they will not pander to the whims and caprices of others.
But we have laws. A lot of persons say that our problems are not with laws, because we have laws.
Yes.
So can you say that these laws, no matter how much they are, we should have more laws in order to bring strong institutions?
It is not having more laws.
Okay.
But you have laws, some laws in this country are incentives to disobedience of those laws. And laws. Okay? And I speak on this with all sense of responsibility.
Yes.
Okay? When laws are made, you know, to cure a situation, to strengthen a situation, and to deter from a situation. These three key elements must be present for a humanly effective law. Okay? Because when you have a law that incentivizes flouting of its provisions, I mean, you can brag as much as you like that you have laws. At the end of the day, you don't have any.
Yes.
Okay? And any law that is there without defined clear requirements of what constitutes an abuse of that law, what constitutes punishment for abuse of that law, and what constitutes incentives for people to obey that law, effectively, is history book. My learned senior will, support me on that. Okay, so now we have so many of such laws in this country. And these laws are made by people that have vested interest. I think they want law. Let's give it to them, okay? And I can begin to rule out those that, if I mention it, those that operate within the system, they know what we are talking about. When we put all the beautiful statements of intention without backup action, you've not said anything. Okay. And this is the problem, the challenge we have with our institutional development process in this country. Otherwise, how is it explicable that, one government comes and starts something, okay, get it halfway, another government comes and jettisons, forgetting that what was committed into that process is the resources of the nation, the wealth of the nation, and then start something afresh, totally, and they will not complete it either.
Okay.
Who suffers?
Thank you, Barrister Chima. A lot has been said. Thank you very much for your contribution. The way forward, Francis Uwaifo, in raising strong institutions and ensuring that we have a balance between the rule of law and national interest.
Yes, I believe that we should strengthen our institutions, really, because when you strengthen institutions, you find out that everything works according to plans. Our institutions in this country, they are still interwoven, they are still intertwined. We don't really have institutions that can stand on their own, and really, just like you said, laws are not our problems in this country. The laws, the implementation of these laws, for the different institutions to stand on their own, to be able to rise up to the occasion. Like the judiciary you mentioned, the judiciary, if it was that, the judiciary still run cap in hand to the executive for finances.
Still being influenced.
Yes, that's why I said who plays by the 22, because they can be influenced, because when you say persecute this one, and you determine who you pays the lawyer, you pays the judge, you give this, you provide everything. There is this tendency that at the end of the day, the outcome certainly will not be fair.
Okay, thank you.
So I believe that our law should be strengthened and it should allow it to flow.
Thank you. The way forward, because premised on what the president said, that the rule of law is subject to national interest and nation security, could that not be influencing court judgments?
Now,
so how do we raise strong institutions?
Luckily, the bar conference that is on now have the tripod as its theme: transition, transformation, and sustainable institutions. At the end of the meeting, there will be a communique. I'm sure the government will get a blueprint of the way forward, how to sustain institutions. As for the
we get a blueprint. Are you by that saying that the government has no bluept on how to
the FDA will come up with a resolution, and I'm sure the chief law officer of the state will forward one to the government.
Okay, but from your perception, from what you perceive about the present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, don't you see his administration as good enough, given the green light in raising strong institutions?
Yes, that is it. It will be judgmental and prejudicial to accept that. And I said, when committees set up during the AGM, there will be a communique.
Okay, you can accept that now.
Yes, how to sustain the institution will be embedded in the communique.
Thank you.
And you said that it was Montesquieu that said it long ago, that 3 arms of government, judiciary, executive, legislature, but good or bad, the executive, out of 12, there must be superior.
Okay, thank you.
So the executive looks more powerful, and it's overall interest of the country that the executive prosecutes.
Thank you very much. Notary Public of Nigeria and constitutional lawyer Adams Aliyu, and very big thanks to you, legal practitioner also, custodian of the law, Williams Chima, and of course, a public affairs analyst who is also a clergyman, Francis Owaifo. Thank you for being part of this. Well, this where we call it a wrap on the discussion segment. Don't forget that insurance segment is next.